Howdy howdy, my name is John, and this video is my April 2021 wrap-up. The first book I finished this month was The Silver Spike by Glen. This is part of a read-along with Mark from Slowly Read. The book I'm holding is actually a bind-up of books 4 through 6 in the series, and we read The Silver Spike as the fourth book in the series, even though in this bind-up it's the third of the three in this bind-up. I really enjoyed The Silver Spike. It's my favorite of the four that I've read thus far in this series. I gave it 4 stars, and I did a full review. I did a review of this book along with the third book in the series, The White Rose, and I'll link that video in the description below. The next book I finished was Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. I absolutely flew through this book. It only took me like a day to read the entire book. There's a lot of moments in this where I laughed out loud. Not all of the jokes land, but still, it was an enjoyable read. I gave it 4 stars. The book was written in 2011 while 30 Rock was still on the air, and it covers her life up to that point. And of course, it also covers her impersonation of Sarah Palin as well. Definitely a book worth reading if you're a fan of Tina Fey. The next book I finished was Robot Adept by Piers. This is the 5th book in the Apprentice Adept series. It is my least favorite in the series thus far. I only gave this one 3 stars, and I did a review on this one as well, which I'll link in the description below. The next book I finished was Off to Be the Wizard by Meyer. This book I learned about on Beth Ann's channel, and I'll link her review of this book in the description below and her channel as well. She enjoyed the book, and it sounded like a book that I would enjoy as well, and I really did enjoy this book. There are some parts, especially in the beginning, the character in the beginning, I really don't like it when stupidity is used as humor, and the beginning of this book is full of that. For example, in this book, the character learns how to teleport. Well, in his eagerness to teleport the first time he does it, he doesn't have any shoes on. And it's just little things like that that kind of annoyed me, especially at the beginning. But once you get past the beginning of this book, it becomes really interesting. Basically, the premise is this: the main character finds a file hidden deep on the internet, and it has all of his personal information on it. And he learns that he can change this information. He quickly gets in trouble with the authorities and transports himself back to medieval England. You know, once you get past the beginning of this is where the book really gets interesting as he meets different people. One thing of special interest to me that I noted is one of the bad guys that the main character runs into, his name is kludge. And kludge is actually a word from electrical engineering that means an improvised solution that looks bad, but usually works. And so I found that to be a fun little touch. It actually got carried over into computer science as well, but the term originated with electrical engineers. If you're looking for a fun science fiction / fantasy adventure, this is a good book to pick up and try. The next book I finished was Claudius the God and His Wife Messalina by Robert Graves. This is the 2nd book in his Claudius duology. I read the first book, I, Claudius, in January, and I really enjoyed it. I gave the first book 5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. The first book was a lot of fun. It read a lot like a soap opera because you basically see Claudius watch what goes on during the reign of the first 3 Roman emperors. And this, at the tail end of the first book, Claudius becomes emperor himself. And this book kind of reads like a memoir of Claudius's time as emperor. This book does get a bit dull in sections, but overall I did enjoy it. Like I said, it's not as entertaining as the first book, but if you're interested in Roman history, and if you enjoyed the first book, this is a good book to pick up and read. The next book I finished is The Soulforge by Margaret Weis. This is the first book in the Dragonlance Raistlin Chronicles series. This is a book that I've been buddy reading with a friend of mine, and we started this actually back in January. We finally got around to finishing it. I enjoyed this book. This book covers Raistlin's childhood until the time where he ends his schooling for magic. It also covers his brother Caramon, their half-sister Kitiara, and then some of the other companions who we meet in the Dragonlance Chronicles. I did enjoy this book. There are a lot of fun moments in this book that, especially if you've read the Chronicles and the Legends trilogy, you're really going to appreciate some of the moments in this book. This book doesn't really have a lot of action scenes, though. There's actually one scene where Raistlin or Caramon are walking to the Mage's Tower, and they get attacked by a band of thieves. And literally, this whole sequence takes about 3 sentences. Really could have developed this out to be an interesting action scene, and no, it only gets 3 sentences. So, there's definitely some weaknesses in the book, but overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Now it's time for old person story time. So let me take you back to 1995. I had just gotten out of college and I hadn't found a job yet. To aid for my search for a job, I would go to the library once a week and I would look at the wanted ads in the Charlotte and Raleigh newspapers. And since I was already at the library, once I finished getting the jobs that I was going to apply for, I would browse their selection of books. One of the books that I picked up and read was Greener Than You Think by Ward Moore. This book was written in 1949. The premise of this book is that a scientist invents a formula to where members of the grasses family can use any substance as nutrition. So basically, the scientist's plan was to enable grains like wheat and rye to be grown in what was previously non-arable land. And she hires a salesman to go to various farms to sell the formula. The salesman takes it upon himself to sell this to homeowners to put on their grass for a beautiful lawn. And his first sale is to a family that has a yard full of Bermuda grass. In California, it's called devil grass. I know it better as wiregrass. And it's something that I have to deal with on a regular basis because that stuff isn't terrible to try to pull out. Anyway, this formula causes the grass to grow to uncontrollable proportions. And as the novel progresses, this patch of grass gets larger and larger. And this book covers the efforts of humanity to stop the grass. I will warn you, the main character in this novel is not likable. The book is actually a satire, and it pokes fun at humanity and every single aspect of our lives. I don't know that I laughed out loud too many times during this book, but it definitely made me smile and think many times. If you're new to science fiction, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you start this book unless you're just a huge fan of satire in general. However, if you've gotten some science fiction under your belt and you're willing to give an older book a try, this is definitely a book worth reading. I gave this one 4 stars. Next book I finished was Inferno by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. As I've mentioned before on my channel, I've been following along with Tom from Tom L.A. Books on his read-through of the Divine Comedy. And as of filming this, I'm a couple cantos away from the end of Inferno. Since I'm near the end of it and I'm wanting to get back to my Isaac Asimov read-through next month, I went ahead and picked up this book this month. This was written in the mid-1970s. This is basically a retelling of Dante's Inferno with some differences. As I've already mentioned, the main character is already dead. He's not a live person going through the Inferno. The second major difference is Virgil is not the guide in this book. It's a character whose identity we do not learn until toward the end of the book. And unfortunately, Goodreads spoils the identity of the guide in its description. So if you want to read this book and you want to find out who the guide is, you want to actually read the book and find out who it is, don't read the description on Goodreads because it flat out tells you who it is. Having already read most of Dante's Inferno first, really kind of helped me appreciate this book more than I had already read it. This is, I think, at least the third time that I've read through this. I first read it back in college for one of my classes, and I really did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars. The last book I read was inspired by a couple of different BookTube channels. I've been really reluctant to get a Kindle because I didn't really want to spend a whole lot of money on a device, read one book with it and then hate it so much that I never use it again. But Michael K. Vaughn put out a video this month about his experience with Kindle, which I'll link in the description below. I had a little bit of time left at the end of the month, and I decided that I really enjoy attention, and that is Pavio's channel. He's a really creative booktuber, and he has also written a book. And I decided that, Jeremy Fee was kind enough to buy the last paper copy, so I figured it would be a good first book to read on my Kindle. So Pay's book is Searching for Marilyn Monroe and Other Parables and Animals. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. The cover story wasn't really my favorite, but my favorite story in this is a story entitled 53. And this is a really great story. It's definitely worth picking up the book just for that story alone. I also really enjoyed 2 other short stories that were in there. And then there's a 5th short story that I also enjoyed, the parable section. These are very, very short stories. They're only maybe 2 to 5 pages each. They pair a story with an aphorism, and the 2 really blend together well. I enjoyed all of the parables in this section. And then the last section is called Animals. Pay did a dramatic reading of one of the animals in this section. It's entitled Tending Rabbits, and I'll link it in the description below. And this section I didn't really enjoy quite as much. I mean, they're all good, but I really kind of need more of a plot, and these are more reflections. And so, I'm just not really the type of reader for this. But like I said, overall, I highly enjoyed the book. I gave it 4 stars. If you enjoy Pay's channel, you should definitely get a copy and read it. Pay's channel is very creative, and this book is no exception to that. If you haven't checked out Pay's channel, you should definitely give his channel a shot. Overall, I had a really great reading month in April. I had 1 3-star book, and the rest were all 4 stars. I hope you had a good reading month as well. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.